Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar about buying a home in Groningen. Before we go into it, could you just let me know if you can hear me and see me clearly, just to make sure, basically that you can hear what I'm saying. You can just type an answer in the chat and I'll be able to see that. Are you able to see me and hear? Yes, of course. Thank you very much for that. If there are any issues on your side, just type it in the chat and then we'll pick it up from there. So welcome, my name is Katie. I am a buying agent with EHN. And at the moment, we are covering several cities within, the Netherlands, but mostly we do cover the whole Netherlands as well. In the chat, you will see my colleague Rafaela. She will be able to support you with any questions that come along. So please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A and Rafaela will go ahead and answer those for you. Great, so enough about me, and us. Let's get to know you a little bit more. I'm just gonna pull up a poll. There we go, I guess you can see that now. So it's just a few questions so we can understand a little bit more about your situation. Of course, what made you decide to buy a property? What are like the thoughts behind that? If you can just answer on the pop-up that you see in front of your screen, that would be great. I'll just give some time for people to answer. Okay, I see some answers coming in. What made you decide to buy? The rents are too high? That's always my favorite one. And I totally agree with it. It's ridiculous what is going on. So yeah, I guess you're making the right decision to buy a house. Perfect. Thanks a lot for the answers, guys. Let me just move forward. There we go. So what do you expect from today's webinar? Of course, we just have a little bit of an introduction. We will share with you some market information. We will also talk about market drivers, what drives the market, what doesn't drive the market. It will also explain a little bit more about the trends and habits of the housing market in the Netherlands. We will talk about savings, what kind of savings you should have before you enter the process. And of course, we'll give you a few tips about winning the market, making a winning offer in this market. And of course, we'll talk about the timeline and the steps. So again, if you have any questions along the way, just pop those in the Q&A and my colleague will pick up for you. Great. So greatness is achieved in the agency of others. What we mean by that, please let me introduce the rest of our team. Giovanna, Ludo, Rafaela, Philip, Elena, and Rick. These are the geniuses behind your files. It's important for us to let you know that, of course, you will have one point of contact when you work with us, but the whole team is actually getting involved in your files and processes. So you don't have only two eyes to look over you, you have a lot of them. And yeah, we just like to work as a team. So we like to also share that with people who might want to work with us in the future. A little bit more about EHN. We are not traditional real estate agents. What we mean by that is that, of course, we help both with buying and renting, but we don't have a commission fee rate, which is pretty common. We only charged a fixed fee. We believe that a buyer has a lot of costs to pay regarding buying a house, and savings are important. So of course, it wouldn't be nice for you to start thinking, oh, if I raise my offer, I need to pay more my agent. So that is out of the way. Fixed prices, we will talk about that later as well, so you have a better insight. We definitely know what it's like to settle in a new country. 90 to 95% of our company is expats and internationals. So we can definitely empathize with your feelings and struggles. Oh, there we go. And then, of course, what is our added value? The selling agents in general take offers from EHN more seriously. That's because they know that we do our due diligence and we are prepared and organized to go forward with the process. We can sometimes book viewings when it's no longer possible. I have it a lot of times that my clients are not able to book viewings. So what we do instead is we get on the reserve list as agents, and we see that a lot of times they call the agents first before they call just the normal average person. That's because if agents know that you are represented, they're more likely to want you to come and view their house. So that is also very convenient sometimes. We support by reviewing the Dutch legal and property documents. Any documents you will receive in this process will be in Dutch. But of course, we do support you in that. As I mentioned, we are 90 to 95% international. Some of us speak Dutch, some of us don't. But do keep in mind that we have Dutch people in our company as well. We do work as a team. So those documents are being reviewed from someone who speaks the language natively as well. That is just to avoid any confusions and misinterpretation. So everything is sorted out in that way. We help you define the market value through market data. That is really important. What you see as an asking price on Funda is not the market value. There's no regulation about it. Usually what happens is that the asking price is placed 10 to 15% below the market value. That is not a golden rule, but it is most of the times. So what we do is we do a price analysis that helps you define the market value. And then in that way, you can make an offer that can be more competitive. And of course, it's more calculated based on your financial flexibility as well. We also will inform you about rules and regulations regarding your property, and we'll definitely try and make sure you don't make the same mistakes we made. I know the owner of the company, Kimo Pola, he's also Dutch. He needed to make 7 offers before he got one accepted. So we'll definitely have a lot of experience there, and we'll try and make the best offer possible for you, of course. Okay, just out of curiosity, where in the process are you? That's quite important. So I know to who I am talking to. I know what kind of information I should talk about more or less. So where are you in the process? You have a poll in front of you, so you can just reply there. So are you researching, viewing properties? Have you already made an offer? Have you already have an offer accepted? I hope that's not the case, because that's really short notice. Did you chat with an agent? Did you chat with a mortgage advisor? So that's just to have a little bit of insight of where you guys are. I see some answers coming through. Most of you are researching. Great, so you're in the right place. I am viewing properties. Some people say, great. Please keep in mind that if you need to make an offer for a property, make sure to inform your buying agent, whoever that is, as soon as possible, because they will need to prepare for it. And you definitely don't want to miss any kind of deadline. Did you chat with an agent? Some of you, yes, some of you not. That's great. Whoever needs to chat with an agent, we will send out the recording of this webinar. You will also find a link where you can book an intake with us with no obligation, so you can have a one-on-one chat with one of us and talk a little bit more about your situation, of course. And did you chat with the mortgage advisor? Oh my God, no one has chatted with the mortgage advisor. That is really important, guys. Like, it's the most important part. What I can do for you, if you want, I can send out some mortgage recommendations that we have for the area of Groningen. But in addition to that, I do advise that you talk to your bank as well. There are differences there. The bank is always a cheaper service, but they have limited products because, yeah, they're only limited to the products of the bank. A mortgage advisors on the private sector is a little bit more expensive, but it comes with the quality of the service, and they do have access in many, many banks. Therefore, if one product is not good for you, they can easily change it and apply for another one. So depending what exactly your needs are, you can see what the best way to go is. If you need any mortgage advisor recommendations, just send your emails to me or Rafaela separately in this chat, And what we'll do is send you an email with some mortgage recommendations. Great, thanks a lot for your answers, guys. Just to move forward, some market information. This is just general info that people find quite useful. Here you see the development in the average selling price in the Netherlands from 2005 to 2022. You see that the year-to-year basis is still increasing. And as you see here, the average price of 2022, please keep in mind that that is Q1. Of course, we don't have data for Q2 yet. That is 426 as an average price in the whole of the Netherlands. A little bit more specific to Groningen, then of course here you see that the houses that were that were sold were 710. By the way, please keep in mind that these are data from the NVM. NVM is the organization of housing associations in the Netherlands, at least one of them. And these are data extracted from their databases, and that's basically coverage covers the most, most of the Netherlands. So 710 for Groningen, that's minus 8% from last year. It is no secret that the sales are going a little bit down due to the interest rates, of course. And that is minus 22% from last quarter. Houses that were up for sale. So yeah, you know that not all the houses are listed. Some of them are just done from a person-to-person deal. But houses that were for sale were 340. That's 8% from last year and 7% up from last quarter. Average selling price, it would be 324. That was 12.7 from last year and 1.2 from last quarter. So even though we see that the sales are dropping, we see that the prices are actually steadily increasing. It is definitely not with the same pace that it was last year. Last year was just an extreme year. But the most important thing is that we still see the increase there. Average price per square meter follows 2,861 euros per square meter. For Groningen, of course, that will differ from area to area. But you see that's almost 21% increase from last year and 9.4 from last quarter. And the sales time is 29 days. That's 54% more than last year and minus 14% from last quarter. So commenting on the last quarter, we see that that is becoming more and more quick. And that is basically the case in general. It is a very quick process once an offer gets accepted. So please pay attention. And if you have any questions, just pop them through and we'll support you with answering. Perfect. So let's talk a little bit more about market drivers. What could drive the market up or down? So of course, fiscal benefits are a big part of it. The tax exemption, which is currently at the moment, would be, one of them would be the transfer tax. So if you buy a house that is worth less than 400,000, so to be specific, 399.999, 400 doesn't count. It has to be less than that. And then it's the first time you buy a house. And you're also 35 and below, 34 and below, so 35, you're not eligible anymore, then it means that you don't need to pay the transfer tax, which is 2% of the purchase price. If you don't fit any of those requirements, then you will need to pay a transfer tax of 2%. Another thing we have at the moment, which is really, really sweet, it's the interest rebate. With that, we mean that the interest that you get on your mortgage is currently tax deductible, which is a very, very nice discount at the end of the year when you're doing your annual income forms, of course. There are no capital gains at the moment when you sell a property in the Netherlands. So that is very, very nice. If you're a buyer, you will sell, you will leave with a profit. They started to discuss about perhaps adding some capital gains, but that is in the future, 2025. If you currently own a house in the Netherlands and you're thinking of selling, maybe that is something you should look into and perhaps try to avoid capital gains after 25. But of course, they need to give some more concrete answers. The other one is the tax-free parent donation. This is ending. Keep in mind that for 2022, this will remain at the 100,000 limit that it is. From 2023, that will be deducted to around 30,000. And then from 2024 and onwards, that will not be applicable anymore. So if your parents or if anyone in your family is donating money for you to buy a property, then it would be a very good idea to put things in action right now before you're not eligible to use it anymore. There's also, when you receive the funds, you also have a certain amount of time to use them. If you need more information on that, just let us know and we'll give it to you. Perfect. Low interest rates. So we definitely saw what the interest rates did last year. Having interest rates of 1.5% really drove the market, right? It's very cheap to borrow money, so why not? It's even cheaper if you calculate the money that you need to repay, let's say. At the moment, we see those interest rates going up. Of course, there are multiple reasons for that. And yeah, the economic system is not something that can be really broken down and explained with detail. There are a lot of influences affecting that. One of the main things is, of course, what is happening at the moment in Ukraine. The mortgage advisors that we talk have an opinion over it that if the war stops anytime soon, then we'll see a big difference on the interest rates in terms of they will stop perhaps growing bigger and bigger so quick. So they would start to stabilize a little bit. Now we have interest rates of an average 3.5 to 4%, depending on your situation. You can also get some discounts, but that is the average. And do keep in mind that that is still quite low in all-time highs in general. So yeah, grab your chance while you have it, I would say. And of course, high rents, right? So if someone needs to pay 1,500 for a rent, but then they can buy a house and they can pay 1,000 euros to the mortgage every month, then that is actually cheaper than the rent, of course. And not only that, it's not money down the drain. Each month you pay something, you literally buy a brick of your house. So you build up equity, and it's money that you see back in a different way. So they become an asset. And of course, the all never-ending problem in the Netherlands is the lack of supply. This is one of the reasons that the Netherlands has a very good housing market in terms of prices increasing and values increases, is because the supply is so low and the demand is so high. That of course, if you don't have a lot of houses, then they will be more and more expensive for people to buy. So these are basically the main market drivers. I'm just going to talk a little bit more about some recent news. So relevantly recent. So of course, from 2021, to 2022, there's a self-occupancy application. What that means is that for properties who have a WOZ value up to 355,000, please note that the WOZ value is different than the market value. The WOZ value is only to calculate certain taxes and limitations. So not the market value, but the WOZ value. If that is 355 and below, then it includes a self-occupancy clause, which means that you will be obligated to live in the house yourself, and you won't be able to rent that out. The reason they do that is because it automatically bars the investors from the lower range properties. So the average buyer can actually have a healthy competition without competing with people who have lots and lots amounts of cash. So there's definitely still competition, don't get me wrong, but at least at this point is a little bit more balanced in the lower range. And just so you know, this is a clause that 60% of the cities in the Netherlands have. But of course, it can be different from city to city. So if you do have a self-occupancy clause, just make sure that you confirm and you are aware what the exact obligations are. Moving on, so we see an article from February 2022 that there's a 20% in house prices in the Netherlands compared to a year earlier, based on the CBS, that is the central office, let's say, of statistics in the Netherlands. So it's pretty valid information. So from that, we conclude that the prices continue to grow in 2022. And of course, the price index has been on the rise ever since the market crash, let's say in 2013. So I don't know if anyone is seeing any articles out there that prices are dropping or anything like that. I just want to make it clear that there is definitely an influence in the market. Interest rates play a role, a big role, and of course some tax deduction regulations that they're trying to upgrade. So for example, the 30% ruling that will affect a lot of expats, that's also part of it. But yeah, we can see that it's a little bit more slow from quarter to quarter. But we see that in the general line, so comparing from a year to year, then we still see that steady increase coming. So it is a good sign for us. And yeah, if you want to talk more about that, just let us know, and we'll book an intake with you. The other thing would be the interest rates to rise. I've talked about this before. This was projected, of course, in 2021, that the interest rates, of course, will rise. Yeah, I mean, they were very low. Of course, they're going to rise. They did predict from before that inflation could be temporary. We see that that is perhaps extended a little bit more. But yeah, we will need to wait and see what will happen there to the general economic structure to be able to understand a little bit more what's going to happen with the interest rates. However, the contacts that we have and the insights that we have, they have told us that the banks have already started stabilizing the increase a little bit more. So yeah, that's it for some news, guys. I hope that gives you some insights. Moving on, I would like to talk a little bit about savings. I'm just gonna put a poll. Wait, let me see. No, sorry, this is not a poll. Apologies for that. So my question to you guys is, what do you think you need in savings before you start looking or making offers or viewing houses? I just want to get an idea of what the expectations are here. I will go ahead and explain a little bit more about that. But for now, what do you need in savings before you start? You can just type your answers in the chat and I'll be able to see them there. I don't see any answers at the moment. It's not a poll, just in the chat, guys. So what do you think you'll need in savings before you start? I have Peter saying 30,000 with a question mark. Good question. Let's see. Anyone else, guys? Any ideas out there? I'll give just a few seconds for people to reply. What do you think you need in savings before you start? Okay, I only have the answer for Peter from Peter Jan, so thank you very, very much. Let me go ahead and explain this a little bit more. There we go. Okay, so these are the kind of expenses you should expect to have. If you're eligible to pay the transfer tax, then that is 2% of the purchase price. So you will need to calculate that on the offer you make. You will need a notary, which will be the legal entity to supervise the process. You will need them for two things. First of all, the mortgage deed, that's usually between 600 and 1,100 euros. And the same goes for the transfer deed as well. And then, of course, you have the mortgage broker. These are just general prices that we have there. 1.5K or 3.4. It really depends which mortgage advisor you go with. So you will know more about when you talk with one. Typical real estate agent will cost you 1 to 2% of the purchase price. If you go with us, that is a fixed rate, so you won't need to worry about calculating that. An appraiser will usually cost you around 650 euros to 800, depending on the size of the property. A technical inspector would usually charge around 435, 450, let's say something like that. You will also be obligated to have an interpreter at the transfer date, since if you're not comfortable with the Dutch language or if you're not native Dutch. And that is an additional cost that will usually cost around 300 to 350 euros. In case that there's a special language required, then that price might be a little bit higher as well. Then you have the bank guarantee. Just to explain this, you will always need to provide a 10% deposit of the purchase price to seal the deal. But that can be done through your mortgage. So it's not money that you need to have, it's money that your bank can sort out. But in order for them to do that, they will need you to pay a fee of around 250 euros, and then they will cover the 10% on time for you. And then we have the national mortgage guarantee. That is an extra layer of guarantee. If the gross value of the property is less than 355, then you will be able to have that guarantee as well. I do recommend that you go for it. If you do have it, it will give you a discount on the interest rate for sure. And it's just another layer of safety. So chat with your mortgage advisor. They will let you know more about that. So these are the kind of expenses you should expect. I would say that would be, if you need to pay the transfer tax, that would be around 5 to 6% of the purchase price with all the expenses calculated. If you don't need to pay the transfer tax, then that would be around 2 to 3% of the purchase price. So I hope that is clear for you. The other thing that I want to go through is 3 tips to win the market. So please keep in mind the savings that we just talked about, because I'm also going to talk about making offers, and that's a separate amount from the savings you should make sure you have. So first of all, the most important thing would be the value. Why is that? Because the bank will only give you 100% of the value of the property. So let's say theoretically you can borrow 1 million euros from the bank. You purchase a property that is 300 euros, 300,000 of course, and then the value of the property is at 250. The bank will only give you 250,000. That they will not give you more, even though you have an excessive amount to borrow. They will only give you 100% of the value of the house. So it is crucial that we always have an idea of what the market value would be. Let's take a quick look here. So you have, let's say hypothetically, this house is asked at 395. Then what we see, of course, is that the asking price is at 395. The market value, hypothetically, let's say that's 415,000. That's within the 10 to 15% below the market value. So you see that these correlate. And then you have, let's say, a potential purchase price of 435. So what happens here is that we see that between the asking price and the purchase price, there's 10% difference. That's 40K. But between the value and the purchase price, that's only 20K difference. And that's not 10%, but not even 4.8. So you see that when people say you need to overbid 15 to 20% or whatever percent to get a value, that is not always true. Because if the asking price is already at the value and then you add another 20% on top of that, then that is really, really expensive, except if that's what you want. So that's why it's important to check what the market value is. Now, if you see this example, you see that the asking price is 375, the market value is 415. We're talking about the same property, and the purchase price is 435. Now you automatically see that the difference between the asking price and the purchase price is 16%. That's 60K, and the difference between the value and the purchase price remains 20K, so 4.8%. So you see that all the benchmark that we need is the value and not the asking price. There are no regulations on the asking prices that you see. There is a general trend that they're placed around 10 to 15% below the market value. So, for example, if your budget of the mortgage is 400 euros, then make sure you start looking for asking prices below that. Okay, so let's say 350, 315, maybe 375, but the higher you go, the more possible it is to exceed your mortgage. Okay, I hope that is clear. So yeah, don't listen to people who say you need to overbid. You definitely need some savings to be competitive. So you see here that this person bid 20K above the market value, which is very normal for Dutch standards, of course, and depending on the property, of course. So you will need to have some flexibility on savings. excluding the savings you have for the expenses. It's good to have some savings so you can also be flexible and competitive with an offer. We had it a lot of times that a client, in many files, they were looking for a long time. Then they finally found that like their dream house, and they were able to get it and beat the competition because they were flexible and they were able to add that 5K at the end. So that could benefit you. It would be really difficult to buy something on value in the Netherlands. Not impossible, but very difficult. And most of the time it comes out as a surprise. So yeah, if you're preparing to go out there, keep in mind you'll need some savings to be a little bit more competitive. Now, the second thing, a winning offer. So what is important? So of course, offering a good price is important, but a good price is not always the highest price. So there are a lot of conditions you can add to your offer. One of them, for example, could be the financing clause. The financing clause basically protects you if something goes wrong in your mortgage. Let's say it gets disapproved, then you will be allowed to not proceed with the purchase contract without any fines. If you do not have the financing clause, then that gives a lot of security to the seller and risk to the buyer, because it means that if your mortgage gets rejected, then you will still be legally obligated to go through the purchase. And if you don't have the cash to cover that, then it means that you will breach the contract, therefore pay a 10% fine. So the financing clause is very powerful. We will not remove that for you if we don't have the green light from your mortgage advisor. So it's important to talk the finances with the mortgage advisor, but it's just to give you an idea that the seller is also seeking for security, not always the highest price. We also had it a lot of times that selling agents rejected the higher price and went for the second offer, which a lot of times was us. And the reason they did it is because they thought, yeah, the gap between the market value and the offer that this person makes is too much. So we're afraid that they will not move forward. So it was not secure for them. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Offering a good price is not always the highest price. Security is very important to the seller. Also, offer the least amount of hassle. If they're telling you they need to move out in January, don't ask them to move out in September, for example. There's a reason they're telling you that. Try and find out their needs a little bit more, and then just try to offer things that will make them convenient, okay? Just to make the process a little bit more convenient. And of course, offer a personal touch. You can always attach like a little PDF or a little slide in a PowerPoint with a picture of yourself, just so the selling agent remembers you from the viewing. And also you can add a little bit information about you and your situation. It is always nice for the seller to have an idea of who is trying to buy their house. So those are things that can perhaps be very useful for making an offer. Third one, due diligence. So I have a question here for you guys. There are two experts you will need to bring in the property. The first will be, well, it's not obligated a technical inspector. It is only needed if you are not satisfied from the state of the house in the viewing. And of course, we do a review of the property documents and we do recommend whether you need to do that or not. So that's a choice. And then you have an appraiser. If you're going for a mortgage, this is obligated because again, the bank will only give you 100% of the value of the house, and that is the person who will certify and generate a report. Okay, that's an appraiser. They need to be certified to do that. So my question to you guys is, when do you think that these experts should be called? Is it before an offer or after an offer is accepted? Come on, Peter, I am hanging on you right now. Just a question, when do you think these experts should be booked? Okay, thanks a lot. We see before. Anyone else, when do you think you should book the appraiser and the technical inspector? Any ideas, guys? Any experiences on that? Any opinions? Just pop them in the chat. Okay, I will just continue moving forward with my best student, Peter Yan. Thanks a lot for that. He says, before I need to disappoint you, the sweet spot would be right after an offer is accepted. The reason is, well, there are a few reasons. First of all, let's say you want to evaluate the property before your offer gets accepted. So first of all, it's very difficult to have anything happen before because the viewings go very quick, and a lot of times there is no time from the selling agents to do that. And also, let's say that in this scenario, they let you do it, and then you make an offer, and your offer gets rejected. Then you still need to pay that 800 euros to the appraiser. So what we do to support you in that is that before we make an offer, we make a price analysis. That is definite. We are not the ones who will certify the document. That of course we need to be transparent about that. But what we do is a very similar exercise to what the appraiser do. It's taking market data that is out there and accessible to professionals and some platforms to the public as well. And then we analyze those properties just to come to an idea of the market range. That is exactly what the appraisers do, but of course they have the power to approve their reports. So right after an offer gets accepted, it would be the best timing to book the appraiser. The same goes for the technical inspector. Imagine that you bring them before, then your offer doesn't get accepted, and you need to still pay for the report for a house that you will never own. So again, after an offer is getting accepted, directly after, that's the first thing we do, we book the experts. And you have, let's say, around 1.5 weeks until we review, have a meeting with you regarding the contract. It's usually within the same or the next weeks. And then from the moment you as a buyer signs, the seller doesn't have this right, only you as a buyer, you see that is you have a 3 days cooling off period, which means that you have some chance to change your mind if there's something that is really bothering you. Of course, the ideal thing will be not to make an offer for a property that you're thinking to pull out. You will already pay expenses for it. So yeah, just to keep in mind, make sure you're confident about the offers you make and the properties you're making offers for. And then just so you know, you do have a 3 days cooling off period as a buyer. I hope that is clear for everyone. I'm just going to talk a little bit more about timeline. So the first thing to do is, of course, start searching and viewing. That is common sense. At some point, you do find a property that you want to make an offer. As I mentioned before, we do prepare documents and stuff for you before you make an offer, so you have better insight. Then, of course, we make the offer for you. Then if the offer gets accepted, the first thing to do is, of course, to book the expert. Appraiser will be obligated if you're going with the mortgage, and the technical inspector is your choice depending on the state of the property. Of course, that is to be discussed with your agent before making the offer, because it needs to be as a condition in the offer. The next thing would be signing the purchase contract. As mentioned before, there's like 1.5 weeks of time from the time that the offer gets accepted until signing the contract. Right from the moment that you have the signed contract, then the mortgage application can start. That usually happens like right after. And then, of course, you also have your cooling off period as a 3 days right there. Then the next things that happens is that there's usually an average of 4 weeks, let's say 2 to 4 weeks. It really depends with which mortgage advisor you're working, and of course how complicated your situation is. The mortgage application gets approved by that time. And then once the mortgage application gets approved, you receive what we call a statement of completion. This is a final statement from the notary stating all your cost and cost of services or taxes or anything that you need to pay on the transfer dates. And then what we have is, of course, there we go, the inspection on the transfer date. The transfer date will be the day that you become the legal owner. That is also the day that most of your costs are due. The only things that you need to pay beforehand is the appraiser and the technical inspector. The rest of them will be paid on the transfer date. And what happens on that day is that first you go to the property together with the selling agent to have a last round of checks. So check if the windows are working, if the heating is working, if there's any special arrangements that you made that you need to check that they were done. People moving out can also break a few stuff, scratch the walls, break the windows or anything like that. So the last inspection is there by law for both seller and buyer to check the state of the house, and then move forward to the notary to confirm that everything is okay, sign the legal documents that make you the owner, and of course, get your keys handed over to you. And that is about the buying steps. I don't know if you have any type of questions. Again, just pop them in the chat and we'll get back to you with them. But I hope it has been clear so far for you. Just to let you know a little bit more about our services. So you see here, we have the smart package and the complete package. I am not going to talk about the new build package because this is only related to properties who are new projects, haven't been built or are in the way of getting built. If that's the case for you, then you can always reach out to us and we'll talk a little bit more about it. But we do offer the service for the new build package as well. So regarding the smart package, everything that I have explained so far is in. So of course you will have an intake with us. You will have your own personal buying manager. You will have property document reviews and price research reviews in preparation to making the offers. You will have the offer submission and negotiations if needed. You will have a contract review with us. And of course, we will support you in booking finding and booking the third parties. And of course, any type of support you need before that will be there. In the complete package, you see that it's a little bit bigger and there's a difference in the price as well. This is at 4,000 euros and this is at almost 2.5. The differences, of course, you see here, they're the bolded points. What we mean by scheduled viewing, so you don't need to schedule and attend your viewings yourself. You just send a link to us. We schedule the viewings for you, attend the viewings for you. These are the same. And then we also are there with you on the last day. So we're physically there attending the last inspection and the notary as well. So of course, that means you also have transfer support. So the idea behind it is that the smart package is a little bit more for people who like to do things on their own. Maybe they have previous experience in buying a home in another country, or they've lived a few years or months in the Netherlands and they know themselves around, so they don't need us to be there physically. So this is more like an online package. And then the complete package, that is a full-on package where we are physically present as well. It's important to let you know that we only have a 10% as a deposit, which is of course deducted from the final price. So that is the total that you will pay, but the 10% you pay upfront. And then the rest of the invoice, you're only required to pay here. So you will see it together with the statement of completion, but you'll be due to pay it here on the last transfer date. So that means that we automatically have a no cure, no payment system, which means that if you don't secure a house, we cannot fully request the invoice to be paid. Okay, so it's only the 10% as a commitment. Once you have found a house, secured the house, got the keys, everything is finalized, then you can go ahead and pay the rest of it. I hope that is clear. And then, do I have any questions from anyone? Everyone has been very quiet except Peter Jan, which I'm very happy for. I don't know if there are any questions, Rafaela, from your sides.
Hi, Katie. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the presentation. It was very informative. I don't think that we have any questions here, but if afterwards anyone has any questions, please book an intake with us so we can have one-to-one, and then we can clarify all your doubts.
Yeah, great. So Rafaela is our agent who is mostly responsible for the Groningen and North areas of the Netherlands. So she will definitely be the expert to talk to about it. But again, needless to say, it's not one person who is going to support you. It's the whole team. So even though you're speaking to Rafaela, you have our support as well. You will receive an email perhaps tomorrow with the video recording and a link to booking an intake with us. If you like to go forward with it, please go. I love it that we don't have any question. It means that we explained it very, very well. So I'm happy for that. And then Peter, Jan, thank you very much for your participation, and thanks a lot for also attending this webinar. I hope everyone has a lovely evening and a lovely weekend, since I'm not going to talk to anyone tomorrow, I guess. And then we're looking forward to see you. Okay, goodbye, guys.